Greetings and salutations, and welcome to episode 108 of Richard's Rock Rambles. Yes, it's Richard Film here with another episode of our Hidden Gems. And this time again, it's probably not a hidden gem, more like an overlooked album. Last time around, we had a look at Black Sabbath. So I thought this time around, we'll have a look at that other great English band, Deep Purple. One of the big four, as I like to call them, Uriah Heep and Led Zeppelin being the other two. Some people may differ. There probably are a few additions to those four, but for me, those are always the top four. But nevertheless, Deep Purple, and the album we're going to have a look at today is one which gets a lot of flack. And I'm not too sure why. And it's mostly from the Ritchie Blackmore camp. You know, the guys who say without Blackmore there's no Purple. Well, if you consider that Steve Morse, the current guitarist, has actually been there the longest, and the album we're going to chat about today was the one and only album that the guitarist, singer Tommy Bolin appeared on. A great loss to the music world, an exceptional talent, played with Billy Cobham, played with the James Gang, played with Zephyr, and a bunch of other artists, and he could do anything. He could do jazz, he could do rock. Very talented guy, died at a very young age, got into drugs, and the rest is history. But in his time at Deep Purple, I thought he added something a little extra to the band, a little different, very different to Ritchie Blackmore, which is why I'll never understand, you can't compare the two. They're very different styles. It's the same with Steve Morse. Blackmore had his own style, Steve Morse has his own style, and Tommy Bolin definitely had his own style. So the album we're talking about is called Come Taste the Band. And that's the album cover there. So this edition that I have is the 35th anniversary edition. It's a 2 CD set. The original album remastered with previously unreleased tracks, or unissued tracks. And the second disc is of bonus remixes by our very own Kevin Shirley, and an extensive illustrated booklet, which I'll show you just now. So yeah, Kevin Shirley involved with this. He's been involved with Led Zeppelin reissues. He's done, I don't know how many Joe Bonamassa albums. He's also the sort of in-house producer for Iron Maiden, so he's doing okay in the States, and I think he's also got studios in Australia. So yeah, Come Taste the Band. And this was at a time when Deep Purple were kind of losing their way a bit. They were trying different things. But for me, this was a revelation. This was very different to the Ian Gillan era, even the Mark III. I mean, this was Mark IV. Because prior to Tommy Bolin coming in, there was still the Ritchie Blackmore. He was on Stormbringer. That was his last album. And a lot more funk was brought in with Tommy Bolin. And Tommy Bolin and Glenn Hughes, the bassist and vocalist for Deep Purple, they were like two kindred souls. Unfortunately, they also both had a love of drugs. And two peas in a pod, but not in a good way at this particular stage in Deep Purple's career. But I still think this album has got a lot going for it. When you listen to this, don't think of a Machine Head, don't think of In Rock, any of those classic albums, if you like, from the Mark II era. This is an entirely different beast. This is Deep Purple with their funk groove on, with a lot of soul. David Coverdale's vocals on here are immense. Some really nice keyboard work as well, with some synthesizers from John Lord, and of course Ian Pace, always the consummate drummer. David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes do some great vocal harmonies on here. And Tommy Bolin also sings on here as well. So it was recorded at Musicland Studios in Munich, Germany, between the 3rd of August and the 1st of September 1975. And it was released on October the 10th of that same year. And it was produced by the great producer Martin Virtue. Of course, it worked with him previously on Machine Head and I think a few of the other albums as well. So on the album, you had David Coverdale on lead vocals, Tommy Bolin on lead and acoustic guitar, backing vocals, he also played a bit of bass, and lead vocals on track 4, co-lead vocals, let's say. John Lord, keyboards, piano, synthesizers, and backing vocals, Glenn Hughes, bass, co-lead vocals, and Ian Pace on drums, as I mentioned. the great Ian Pace. In fact, Ian Pace is the only guy left from the original lineup of Deep Purple. He's been there from day one and still going strong by all accounts, from what I've seen lately on YouTube and what have you, on the last couple of albums, still doing his thing. He's had a few health scares, but these oaks are all in their late 70s. So you're not 25 anymore. So let's have a look at this album, and I'm going to show you a few photographs inside, being the deluxe edition. That's the back over there. That's the first disc and the second disc. So what are the tracks on here? This is a full-on groove-laden album for me. And Ian Pace is all over this album. Coming Home is the first track, with some great vocals from David Coverdale. He really shines on this album. I mean, he was great on Burn and on Stormbringer, but I think here he still brings it to the party. Cheers, guys. Then we have a track called Lady Luck, with some great guitar work from Tommy Bolin. He really shines on this album. Unfortunately, because of the drugs and whatever, when they went out on the road to support this album, there were many gigs where John Lord had to cover for him because he just couldn't pull it off. He was having a hard time. But Lady Luck is a great track. Then my favorite track on here, the one called Getting Tighter, which has got such a funky groove. And it's really, there's even elements of prog within this album. A lot of time changes. The band are super tight, and the production on this is amazing. Martin Birch did a really great job on this album. Then there's the track Dealer, which is kind of prophetic if you think about what was going on in the band at the time. So Dealer would be a good song to do. I Need Love, Drifter, Love Child, another great David Coverdale song. Just brilliant vocals. This Time Around, which was a very slow, a lot of feeling in that song. You Keep On Moving, which features Glenn Hughes' vocals. Excellent singer. He was kind of the second vocalist in Deep Purple, but he could quite easily have been the frontman. And as we know, in subsequent years, he became known as the voice of rock for a reason. The man just doesn't age. I mean, he's still singing Up a Storm, and he's in his late 60s, early 70s. And he still sounds today like he did in his 20s. He doesn't. There must be something in the water. So that was You Keep On Moving. And then there's a bonus track, You Keep On Moving, which is the single version. So that was obviously the first version that came out. Then on the second disc, you've got the Kevin Shirley remixes, Coming Home, Lady Luck. So it's pretty much the whole album again, remixed by Kevin Shirley. And then there's two bonus tracks. Same in LA is the first bonus track, track 11 and track 12. There's a Bolin and Ian Pace jam, which is quite cool. If you're a full-on completist, then you got to have something like this. So let's have a look inside the disc and see what I can show you. That's the original cover with them all in the glass there. Come Taste the Band. Makes sense. Let's see if I can show you anything in here. Oh, that's just on the Purple Records label. There's a few shots of other albums over there. And I must say, the production on this is really great. The sound is immense. And it's just, full of groove, this album. They're the guys in their late, mid-70s finery. Hair very long in those days. And that was the 70s, I guess. And there they are, Tommy Bolin and John Lord there at the keys. Glenn Hughes, and I think the guy with the hat on is Ian Pace. Often wore a hat in those days. And that's John Lord and Glenn Hughes, I think, over there. And it tells you about the whole album and the recording sessions and everything else. And there's John Lord at the keyboards again with a great Hammond organ. There's really some cool photographs in here. On tour, there's the guys over there that's Tommy Bolin over there. Such a loss for music world. Incredible guitarist. David Coverdale and Tommy Bolin over there. David Coverdale wearing glasses, something you don't often see in photographs of him. I'm just getting stared at by my cat here. He probably wants to get on the act. There's a cool photograph of the band. So that's Glenn Hughes, Ian Pace, John Lord, Tommy Bolin, and there we have David Coverdale. Very young David Coverdale, long before the days of White Snake. And there he is again with John Lord in the studio doing their thing. So as you can see, there's some really nice photographs here. And there the guys were wearing a succession of silly hats, some of them. There we go. There's another great shot of the band. There's some cool band shots in here. Glenn Hughes with some suspenders. Yes, well, whatever. And that's about it. And that's just the back. The songs, really worth checking out. And like I said before, you know, I love the Blackmore era of Purple, and I love the Tommy Bolin, and I love the Steve Morse. But you have to separate them. They're entirely different guitars, different styles. Especially today, the band has moved on. You know, they're doing different things, they're expanding. And obviously they can't do what they did back in the 70s because Ian Gillan's voice just can't do that anymore. So he's got to bring it down, and they write songs which will suit his voice and, you know, do the music to suit his voice. But I love this late 70s, mid 70s period. In fact, if you look at Burn, Stormbringer, and then this album, Come Taste the Band, you can see the progression, and it gets funkier as it goes along. And that was one of the reasons why Blackmore left. You know, he wasn't into that. He wanted to do his own sword and sorcery thing, which is how Rainbow came about. But it's great for what it is. And it's one I reach for this quite often. Crank it up to 10. You can't go wrong. So there we go. Another hidden gem or overlooked album, if you like. Probably a better description. And yeah, next time around, we'll have a look at another one. Take it easy out there, guys. Stay warm. Here in Cape Town, it's pretty chilly. And it's our winter here, so stands to reason. We just need a bit more rain, I think. And yeah, if you haven't yet, please, down below, give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't. Any comments, more than welcome. And yeah, it'll be great to hear from you. Take it easy, and I'll catch you again soon. Cheers.